Hello, everyone. Welcome to Steph Live, my monthly Q&A. Ask me anything, where I just talk about whatever you guys want me to talk about. So get your questions in on the chat. I hope you're all doing well. I'm okay. I've not been feeling that good for a couple of days. I wasn't feeling great when I was in New York. So I'm kind of like getting over a cold or something. So I've got my huge 7-Eleven coffee from the 7-Eleven downstairs, which they've just installed a self-checkout in. And I'm the only person that seems to be using this self-checkout. Like the queue will be right across the store and no one's using it. So the locals are not up on self-checkout yet. But what have we got to talk about? I was just taking a scroll through Reddit and Discord before I went live to see if there was any like big news today or anything, but yeah, nothing stood out to me. When I know we've got Raw tonight, I was just listening to the What Culture preview for that, the Go Home for Bad Blood, CM Punk, Drew McIntyre. I'm excited to watch that. I have a rare day off today, so it's going to be fun to like not have to work and then watch Raw. I think I'm going to be able to watch Raw in quite a relaxed setting. Let's see who we've got here. Maria says, I noticed you had the sniffles yesterday. Yeah, I did. I've had the sniffles for quite a while, to be honest, but it was really bad on Tuesday when I landed in New York. It was really, really bad, and I had to go to sleep as soon as I got to New York, which was kind of annoying, but getting over it. Okay, we have some questions. Let me see. Okay. Magnum BI, hello, says thoughts on Rey Fenix contract. So I guess what you're talking about is the report that injury time is going to be tacked on to Rey Fenix's contract, which could be up to a year, apparently. And yeah, it was thought that him and his brother Penta were going to be heading to WWE. It seemed like a done deal. When Penta's contract is up, it's like there were reports they were getting Lucha Bros merch made, and then all of a sudden we hear that Fenix is going to have injury time tacked on. I don't think it's a good thing. It's obviously like something that WWE did first. They would tack this injury time onto guys' contracts. And the whole thing is complete bullshit. Like complete bullshit. It's a bullshit thing that the wrestling business has been allowed to get away with. I don't think that you would have other athletes having injury time tacked onto a contract when they get injured, working for you. And so I think it's really, really wrong. And I think it's the kind of thing that when AEW was formed, and the way that Cody in particular was talking, like in the very early days when Cody was really the face of AEW before Tony Khan kind of stepped more into the limelight, it did seem like they were going to do a lot of things better for wrestlers, and so on. And they do in a way. AEW wrestlers, as far as I know, like the last that I heard, they get their transport paid for them, they get their hotels paid for them, and it's not that way in WWE. So there are a lot of things that they've done better, but it's like shitty things like this, they're still going to do. But then Tony's in a tough position because I think that some people would say that he looks like a bit of a mug if he just lets Fenix leave, and people are always very critical of Tony and how he lets himself be treated by wrestlers. And he certainly does seem like a pushover. And the wrestlers know that, he really seems like that. So someone, I guess, has to maybe be the victim there. It looks like it's going to be Rey Fenix. But I don't know if Rey Fenix was helped by how his brother was behaving, because it was clear that Penta was telling whoever would listen that he was going to WWE. And Conan does not help things at all with how Conan behaves, because there's obviously stuff that Conan's annoyed at regarding AAA and AEW, and I think that maybe that influenced things. I can't help but, I mean, maybe just because I don't like him, the whole William Regal tweet, I'm not sure if that didn't influence things. You know, that like William Regal's sitting in his complete snake skin saying he's not a snake is pretty funny. But yeah, broadly when it comes to Phoenix, I don't think that he should have the injury time tacked onto him. I think it's pretty unfair, and it's going to take you know, a wrestler really making a case, like maybe a legal case, to like stop these contract practices, but I'm not sure who's going to do that. Okay, next, Mika asks, what's your favorite snack? My favorite snack is anything Reese's Pieces. I love Reese's Pieces. I love peanut butter. Reese's Cups. There are these Reese's Puffs cereal bars that I bought like a gigantic packet of, thinking that I'd have one every morning for my breakfast. End up eating about 4 or 5 of those a day. I just ate a Reese's Pieces cake pop as well, because I thought it might help my throat. So anything Reese's Pieces is my favorite snack. Okay. Favorite match of all time. So difficult. It might actually be Undertaker Shawn Bad Blood. Probably a lot of that is to do with the two participants, like my two favorites from childhood. First time of Hell in a Cell. It was just such a well done match. Rob, I don't know about the New Japan show that you're talking about. But you do ask, what is your favorite pro wrestling show of the year so far? Ooh. A favorite show of the year so far. It might be Dynasty. It might be AEW Dynasty. I just want to look up exactly what was on that card. So if I can confirm. I was there. So you had, yeah. This was a really great show. This was like the best AEW show I'd been to in a while. Yeah, Okada, Pac, Osprey, Danielson, yeah. Swerve winning the title, yeah. I think Dynasty might be my favorite of the year so far. Okay, let me see. Aaron says, in 1996 and 97, did you watch Raw and Nitro during the Monday Night Wars, or were you too young? I watched Nitro. I watched Nitro up until the beginning of 1998. So the first WWE pay-per-view that I watched live, not live, I set the tape to record while I went to sleep because I was too young, was SummerSlam 98. So my introduction to watching weekly pro wrestling was WCW Nitro, and then I made the switch to Raw at the beginning of 1998. So yeah, I wasn't watching Raw in 97, but I was watching Nitro. Okay. Eric Tate says, what do you think about Raw being moved back to 2 hours next week? I think it's good. I think that even though Raw is good at the minute, 3 hours of a TV show every week is so long. That's like a movie a week, or even longer than a movie a week. I think 2 hours is a better spot, but I do think that this won't last when they go to Netflix. We don't really know how long the show's going to be, but I think it's going to be a welcome break for them. And I know some people kind of have the take of Raw's really good right now, and Raw is worth being 3 hours right now, but I still don't think any wrestling show, weekly show, should go 3 hours. So I think it could be even better if they have to streamline things more just to fit them into the 2 hours. So yeah, I would be glad to see the back of the 3-hour Raw era, but I think they're going to move to 3 hours SmackDown, which yeah. So I just like my wrestling shows to be 2 hours a week. That is the most for me. Ooh, okay. Aaron says, do you watch any classic or old school pro wrestling matches from the 80s and 90s? I recently watched Vader versus Ric Flair in 1993 at Starrcade and Harley Race and Flair at Starrcade 83. Yeah, I've gone back and watched so much old school stuff, especially Ric Flair stuff. There was a great DVD set that WWE once brought out of Ric Flair. It was like a white cover, and there was many, many discs. So I watched all of that. I'm a big Randy Savage fan, so I watched a lot of old Randy Savage as well. I especially like watching his Memphis stuff. So yeah, I haven't done it. It's not something that I've done in a while, but there was a period when I was in my late teens where I went back and tried to watch like a ton of old wrestling. So yeah, I definitely tried to absorb that knowledge. Geo says fantasy book All In Texas main event. Oh my god, that is so far away. All In Texas. When is All In Texas? But oh, sorry, it just played my phone. When exactly is All In Texas? All In Texas AEW. It is on July 12th, 2025. Like, where are we going to be by July 12th, 2025? You got Danielson as the champion now. I think Moxley's going to take it from him. I could see Darby taking it from Moxley. Then Swerve taking it from Darby. So I'm going to book for the main event Hangman Swerve with Hangman winning. And I would like this to be the first time that they've had a match since their match at All Out. Yeah. Fernando says, I like what Tony did. WWE, this is in regards to Phoenix. WWE plays dirty with contracts all the time. For example, WWE told Stephanie to burn the promotion she was working for in Mexico and not honor the rest of her contract. So yeah, WWE definitely does play dirty, but I don't agree that means that Tony has to. When it comes to Stephanie, I mean, she was. I think that's as much to do with the contracts that CML were giving out. That she was able to do that. I don't know if did WWE play maybe a little dirty with getting Stephanie, and she'd just been on Forbidden Door and all that. I mean, maybe, but it's business. I just can't feel good about adding a year on to a guy's contract that doesn't want to be there. I mean, I'm not sure what age Phoenix is. I would say he's pushing 40. So you're taking a prime year away from a performer. And it's not as if he's necessary. He hasn't been used. Him and Penta haven't been used well in AEW for a long time. And even though them jumping to WWE is going to be a big thing, they're not going to be game changers Punk or something. And look at CM Punk. Look at how much injury time that he had out. And, yeah, they fired him, but with firing him, they enabled him to go to WWE without having any kind of massive wait time or whatever. So I just feel for me, it's hard to to agree with Tony doing that. Like, to me, it just seems like a little dirty. Okay, Mika Does It asks, what would you book for the main event of Saturday night's main event? I'm going Cody versus Gunther, champion versus champions. I know that Ibu from Wrestle Purists really wants it to be Cody versus Roman, like them having a rematch. I wouldn't do champion versus champion just because I wouldn't want either of them to lose. But I do think you need a big match for that. I would maybe go for, in order to save Cody from having to face a lesser opponent, let's say, I would maybe do like Gunther versus Punk or something for Saturday night's main event. But yeah, I think you're going to get a really, really big match for that. Okay, Maria says, do you believe in Joe Hendry becoming WWE Undisputed World Champion someday? Okay. I gotta say no. I don't believe in Joe Hendry. I think that Joe Hendry is someone who's worked very hard to get himself over, get his gimmick over and what he's doing. But it's very one note meme, unserious, and he's not anything special in the ring. And I think that he lucked out with not lucked out because he got himself there, but with, WWE, giving him the chance to come into NXT and all that with the TNA partnership. But I think the ceiling has been hit. Maybe the ceiling is NXT champion, but I still wouldn't put that on him. But I think that, like, we're reaching the end of what can realistically be done with a Joe Hendry before you just run the whole thing into the ground. So no, I don't see Joe Hendry becoming world champion someday at all. But he's a very entertaining guy, and he deserves all the success that he has. And you have to create something like he did, and ride that wave as far as it will take you. But I don't think it would be a good idea on WWE's part to let him ascend any higher than he has. Okay, we have Jake from Windy City. Hello, Jake. Outside of being a reporter, do you still at times be able to sit back and absorb and enjoy shows as a fan, or do you have to remain wearing the reporter's hat? Thanks, Stephanie, for all the work you do. Okay. How am I going to answer this one? Sometimes I can really enjoy things as a fan when I'm watching them at home, right? I think that I do enjoy all the shows as a fan when I'm watching them at home, even if something happens that I think is really bad booking or really bad creative or whatever. But that question is kind of, it's interesting with the Grand Slam thing, right? Which I will stop talking about, but it's just an interesting time to ask, because I go to a lot of the pay-per-views, right? The AEW pay-per-views, and I've been to more WWE pay-per-views this year than I have in previous years due to me being currently based in Toronto. So my idea with going to Grand Slam, for me, it was either go to Grand Slam or Wrestle Dream. And Grand Slam was like the much easier and cheaper trip. And so I just thought, I should go to Grand Slam and just have fun, because Wrestle Dream, paying to get to, it's not as if I'm going to get any great content from it, because AEW doesn't offer the interview opportunities, and the scrums are what they are, and I actually I find them very stressful. So I thought that Grand Slam would be a good thing to just enjoy as a fan. I have I think some of the live shows I've enjoyed the most have been the Thanksgiving Dynamites I've gone to, where, you know, it's not a pay-per-view, there's no scrums or anything. So yeah, one of the big reasons why I wanted to go to Grand Slam was to like enjoy something as a fan, because I found All In and All Out pretty stressful. I found Forbidden Door stressful. Dynasty not so much, but anyway. And the seat fiasco it stopped me from being able to enjoy it as a fan. Now, maybe there's a lesson there in that if I wanted to go and enjoy it as a fan, I should have bought a fan ticket rather than a media one. I don't know, but I do find it hard to enjoy shows as a fan, like absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that my theory of going to Grand Slam to be able to get more of actual just enjoyment out of it, you know, didn't work out. And it's really made me feel like now I'm not sure that I want to go to AEW pay-per-views anymore. Though I am going to go to Full Gear because I already had that planned. And I'm going to go to the Thanksgiving Dynamite. But when it comes to 2025, I think I really have to think about, like, does it serve me or what I want to do, like actually going to these shows? And does it even serve me and what I want to do to take, you know, media tickets? Like, I don't know, but yeah, I've been left thinking a lot about those things. Okay. Rob says, I remember you posted about your recent visit to Toronto. Yeah, so I'm still in Toronto. I would love to visit there. Any advice for first-time tourists trekking from the UK? I don't think I have any advice. There's so much to do in Toronto. I think you need over a week here, maybe about 10 days. Really plan it out to make sure you don't miss anything. There's so many great areas and parts of the city to explore. It's just, yeah, it's a wonderful place. And I have been here since March. And I guess another reason why I'm definitely not going to Wrestle Dream in Seattle is I don't think I can leave. I can't leave Canada again until I kind of not leave for good, but I'm leaving at the end of November for an extended period, because since March, I have entered Canada 6 times. And, you know, 5 times it was easy. This most recent time was not. So I will not be crossing the border until I'm not coming back for a while. You see. Fernando says, who's your first big interview with a wrestling talent? Okay. I'm trying to think of the timeline on that. What when each of these things happened. I'm trying to think, like, who was the first? Who was the first? I don't know who the first was, because I would get these little things that were offered to me, given to me by WWE, and I did some things like when they did their show at the Royal Albert Hall, you know, which became kind of like the origin story of NXT UK. And then I had a trip where they brought me to the Performance Center where I interviewed Triple H and basically all the talent that was there at the time, people like Adam Cole. And then I also interviewed some of the SmackDown talent that were there, like Bayley, Ricochet, Lacey Evans, Andrade, people like that. So there's a lot of that. But the first interview that I set up myself and was able to do was with Jay White. I interviewed Jay White after a not after, it was before a Rev Pro show that he was doing just outside of London. It might have been in like Stevenage or somewhere, but I was going to the show and I found just found out his email, and I emailed him and asked if I could interview him, and that was a real turning point for me. And yeah, that Jay White is like the first like big one that just came off me doing something. And that was, he was in this switchblade gimmick at that point, but it was early on in it, so you were not seeing interviews with Jay in English. I can't think of anyone else that interviewed him in English other than Alicia Toot before I did it. And I just I wanted to interview him because I was just such a big fan. I thought he was so interesting. Another one from Fernando says, what should main event Bad Blood, Punk versus Drew, or Roman and Cody versus the Bloodline? I think that's a really tough call because I think that Roman and Cody teaming is such a big deal, but it's Bad Blood, and Punk and Drew have been having this feud for so long, and it going into a cage is massive too. My heart says that it should be Punk versus Drew, but my head says it should be Roman and Cody versus the Bloodline. Yeah. Jake from Windy City again. How long have you known John Pollock and Wai Ting? And were you an avid listener of live audio wrestling back then as well? I don't remember when I started listening to live audio wrestling, but I was listening for a couple of years, and I vividly remember the day when there was all of a sudden no live audio wrestling anymore. And when that all went down. So I was listening to them for quite a while. And actually, I would have never asked Jay White for an interview if I had not have listened to a podcast that John Pollock did with Ariel Helwani, where Ariel talked about him interviewing Conor McGregor in his early days. That whole podcast inspired me to just, go for things when it came to wrestling. How long have I actually known them? I think, when did I meet them for the first time? It might have been when they did their anniversary show before Full Gear 2 years ago, like in person. But I'd done stuff, online with them. I know I had John on my YouTube channel once. So yeah, I've known them a couple of years, and it's really wild to think that I actually probably know them now. And like, I drove to SummerSlam with them. I didn't drive, John and Wai drove, and just like spending time in a car with John Pollock and Wai Ting, it's something I never thought would happen. But absolutely amazing guys, and John is the best in the business, and he's the person that I look up to the most. I think that John and I are quite similar in many ways with things that we think, but John handles himself a lot better than me. I think like that's our difference. Right. Whoa, there's a lot of questions. I'm loving this. Keep it coming. Okay. Final boss, who do you think Rock will face at Mania, Cody or Roman? I think Cody. Like I think Cody. I think Cody. Mika does it, says, who are 5 superstars you want to see John Cena face in his farewell tour, and do you think we get a heel turn in 2025? We will not get a heel turn, and I couldn't care less about who Cena faces. I don't hate Cena. I mean, I used to when I was young. I hated Cena. I don't hate him anymore, but I don't care about anything that he does. I think it'd be funny to see him face CM Punk. I think it'd be funny to see him face Cody. I think Gunther would be a good shot. I think Braun Breaker would be a good shout as well. And another one, who's another person that he could face? There's no one like screaming out to me, but uh someone from NXT, someone like that really gets in the come up when we get to 2025. I think that would be good for Cena to put someone like that over. But I'm just not a Cena person. To me, he's just like furniture. There's nothing that they can do with him that would really excite me. Even a heel turn, which I think would be meaningless at this point. Maria says, did you watch the Vince McMahon documentary on Netflix? And if you did, what are your thoughts? Yeah, I watched the Vince documentary. I started it on Wednesday when it came out. I was watching it Wednesday morning in New York. I finished it on Thursday when I got back to Toronto. I have a lot of thoughts on it, and I'm hopefully going to be writing about it today, like writing my thoughts for Substack. I just broadly, I didn't think it was that well done a documentary. I think that I feel like when the Janelle Grant lawsuit dropped, I think that they should have gone back to the drawing board with this documentary. Obviously, it had a totally different purpose before the Grant lawsuit. And how they tackled that a bit in episode 1 and then tacking it on to like the final 20 minutes, I do not think was good. I think that the filmmakers were given all the pieces to the puzzle, right? And they were still not able to put it together to create like an accurate picture. I think we'll probably get a follow-up, but I did find it watchable and I did find it entertaining and I enjoyed it and I didn't find it boring. But when you know everything and you know what's happened now, I think they made some strange decisions that were probably just made because they were rushing of like we've been making this for years, like we have to get it out. But I didn't think they did the best job with how they tackled the Janelle Grant stuff. Mika, with a current crop of WWE women's talent, could you see them doing Evolution 2 next year? And who should be in the main event? If so, I think we've maybe moved past the need for Evolution, an all women's event. I feel like when I've asked female wrestlers about that, they very much all seem to be like, we would rather just get the spots we deserve on the usual pay-per-views than have one just created for the women. So I'm not sure if WWE would do one again. But main event, I would, if I had to, I would be booking like Rhea Ripley and Bianca, like best versus the best in my mind. Darren Walker, will you be going to any wrestling shows before 2024 ends? Yeah, I'll be going to Full Gear and I'll be going to Dynamite in Chicago, the one that comes around Thanksgiving time. Okay, Maria says, who in your opinion is the greatest wrestler from the UK? Will Ospreay. Will Ospreay by a mile. The other ones I put in the conversation would be Nigel McGuinness and Zack Sabre Jr. But I wouldn't put like a Regal or a Bulldog like anywhere near the conversations being good wrestlers. But Will Ospreay, yeah, even though he's like, I don't think he's even reached his peak yet. I don't think he's even come close to his peak, to his ceiling. I think the best is yet to come with Will, and he's still the greatest wrestler that the UK has ever produced. Fernando, why do you think that Saraya couldn't connect with the AEW audience the way she did as Paige with the WWE audience? The easy answer is because she sucks, right? But I think that you have to go back and look at when Paige came in to WWE and she, adopted the anti-diva gimmick, which set her apart. And I think her coming in with that gimmick made fans connect to her because the fans wanted something different from women's wrestling, right? And I think for a very short period of time, she worked as that. But then you got the four horsewomen, Sasha, Bayley, Becky, and Charlotte, who could actually wrestle because the idea that Paige was a really good wrestler is a myth. Like she wasn't. She was completely outclassed as soon as you got like Bayley and Sasha and people like that. But I think the fans kind of always had this special place for her as, you know, like the different one, the outsider one, who came right before the women's evolution. I think that her real life attitude affected how AEW fans saw her, because whenever she started dating Ronnie, that's when she became like very online and very like ride or die for him, and he's obviously very like despicable. And I think she also came into AEW at the worst possible time, because the AEW women's division had not been good since the company started. And I always say, like, this is not the fault of the company, right? But there wasn't a female Chris Jericho, right? There wasn't a veteran woman to lead the division. And you had Britt Baker separating herself from the pack early on. But we were getting to a really good point, especially due to the emergence of Jamie Hayter with the AEW women's division, where it looked like everything was finally clicking. And it really felt like Paige came in and just ruined it. And like a lot of that is Tony Khan's fault. Tony should have never hired her. But I think that really derailed what they were doing, because I think that the fans had invested so much in this AEW women's division and wanted so badly for it to be good, and not only be good, but be booked well, for these women to be given time, for these women to be given proper storylines, that by the time that we got to the point of an ex-WWE woman who was high profile, more high profile than like a Ruby Soho coming in, the fans were just like, no, like, we want the focus to be on people like Jamie Hayter, like still Britt Baker, like Ty Conte, like our girls. And I think she just came in and like shat on that a lot, and her opening promos were awful and horrible and like very egotistical in a way where, you know, she was meant to be a face, but she was just saying these things. And yeah, I think that's what happened with Saraya. You know, and I spoke about it on my Dynamite review, but it's wild that Tony gave her a new contract. It's absolutely wild. Just someone who contributes nothing. And I did think when he signed her that out of everyone, and including CM Punk in that, and including other people that attract negative attention, that Saraya would be the one that would bring like kind of the most shame on the company. And I'm not sure if she's fully done that yet, but there's always a massive chance of that when she's running around with Ronnie Raddick. Okay. Aaron says, do you think modern guaranteed money is a bad thing? Before, you were paid based on how much you drew. If you didn't draw past, your payment was increased. Pro wrestlers made more money in the past too. I can't say that guaranteed money is a bad thing. You know, it's always good to know how much you're getting paid, and for it to be steady, and, you know, they get merch money and stuff like that. So I think that obviously when you're being paid on how big a house you draw, like the incentives more, but I can't like knock, you know, guaranteed money. Okay, keep them coming, guys. I'm gonna try and do an hour. Let me see. Okay, here's a good one from Fernando. Which current WWE star would benefit from going to AEW, and who from WWE would do better in AEW? Which current WWE and who from WWE would do better in AEW. WWE stars I'd like to see in AEW. No one really springs to mind for me on that. I'm just so not into like bringing in WWE guys. So, for example, Kevin Owens' contract is coming up, and obviously Kevin Owens is amazing. And it would be really wild and exciting to see him in AEW, but I don't think I'd push for it because I'm still just wanting the AEW guys to really get theirs, like to a lot of the guys to have the trigger pulled on them. So I'm not really thinking of any WWE stars like jumping over. I think more women probably. I mean, I'd love to see Shayna Baszler in AEW. I know it's not going to happen, but I'd absolutely love that. I'd love to see what she could do. Rob, any thoughts on the New Day's current storyline? I think it's very good. I do. I think that they are. It's a different way to do this breakup of a faction or whatever it is. I think there's a lot of good like little Easter eggs. The New Day have been around for 10 years, which is crazy. And I think it's quite a good realistic storyline to see these men, you know, come to this point of like, does it really still serve me to be in this group, or what could I have been doing if I wasn't in it? And obviously what happened to Big E was really, really sad, and it's not something that they properly addressed. And as characters, as human beings, like they need to work through it. So I think it's a really good storyline, and I think it's something different, and I think it's something more creative and more intelligent than we usually get with these kind of faction dissension or breakup storylines. Okay, I've got a few left. Unless you want to put in any more to like take me to an hour. Who should have retired Triple H? The problem was like he just wouldn't retire, so it probably should have been like you know, like an Orton or Batista, but he wanted to keep on going and going and going and going. Maybe one of his NXT kids before he had the heart attack, like an Owens or Zayn, someone like that. Fernando says, why do you think tribalism is worse now than during the Monday Night Wars between WCW and WWE? Internet, it's social media, it's Twitter, it's before, when the Monday Night Wars were happening, obviously like the internet existed, but it wasn't like it is now. And you would be a huge WCW fan and WWE hater, say, and I mean, what could you do with that? You could just, you know, go to Nitro, give your money to WCW, maybe argue with your friends on the playground if they were Fed fans. But now you have social media, so you can talk to the world about it. You can talk to the world about how much WWE sucks or how much AEW sucks, and you can make that division of us versus them. And also you can do it anonymously. You know, no one has to, you can set up an X account and no one has to know what your real name is, who you are. You can just put out into the world whatever shit you want. So I think that's why the tribalism is so much worse, and you're not held accountable for anything online pretty much either. So yeah, it's social media, man. Social media is crazy. And I think that like I don't think I should ever just be like tweeting again. Like I really don't think it serves me, but I think I'd be less against Twitter if people did have to use their, you know, real identity. So you can't just be on there, you know, calling yourself whatever, like MJF's biggest fan or something, and no one knows who you are and you can just say whatever. But yeah, it's all social media that's made things more tribal now and more intense. And I mean, it's happening in politics. You know, you can see it too. Everything. There's a real divide, and social media like allows people to just, you know, shout. It's like fucking Speaker's Corner in Hyde Park, but put online. Maria says, who do you think has a bigger chance going to the WWE in a few months, Britt Baker or Ricky Starks? I think they'll both go. Ricky more than Britt, but I think I could see them both going. I don't know how either of them would work there, but I think they'd both benefit from the change. It seems like Ricky really wants it. So it will be sink or swim for Ricky. I think it'll be a little bit easier for Britt, but Britt is not at the level of a wrestler that a lot of the women in WWE are, and the women that are in NXT. She can't hold a candle to Julia or Stephanie Vaquer or Roxanne Perez. There's a lot of great women wrestlers down there in NXT, and I think Britt will be pretty exposed. I have higher hopes for Ricky, but I don't think it's a lock that Ricky would go to WWE and become like a massive star. But I think he'd hopefully get a fair shake at it, given his relationship, you know, with Cody and stuff like that. Fernando says, is Jericho bringing AEW down? No, he's not personally bringing AEW down. I think what brings AEW down, I mean, the television product is kind of what I was saying in Dynamite, where this like weird tone shift, you know, where you can have something like Brian and Nigel, and then the next thing you have Kip Sabian running off with a pen. And I think that the gimmick that Jericho's doing is more on the comedy side, more on like the silliness. Like we see Swerve's childhood home burn down, and you know, Jericho's feeding over a jacket, then he's getting pennies put in his car. So is he bringing AEW down? No. I think he could do something that was more serious. That would be a lot better. But I don't think he's personally bringing AEW down. And I think people have to remember that Tony is the booker and Tony's putting his stuff on TV. So I think it's like all more of a like a nuanced conversation than people are willing to have when it comes to him, because people like, you know, think he's on TV too much and it makes them angry and they put it just on him. But it's Tony that's allowing these things to go through, or and putting him on TV and actually probably wanting him on TV. So just the way I'm seeing it currently. Let me see. There's okay. Fernando, do we know for sure if Big E is done for good? No, I think he's constantly trying to get better, to be able to return to the ring. I personally wouldn't if I was him, but I know it's very hard for a lot of guys to give up. Who turns on Cody first, KO or RKO? KO, I think. KO. Rob, is the landscape of US wrestling TV oversaturated with talent or not? No, I don't think you can ever have too much talent, but I think AEW is very oversaturated for the amount of TV they have. Sorry. No, not for the amount of TV they have, right? Because they nearly have as many hours as WWE, or they do have as many hours, but for the way they book that TV. Because you're getting like the Dynamite crew, who are like your A team, and then Collision is the fucking FTR show. And Collision and Rampage are just constantly these recycled people doing things that feel meaningless. So I think that AEW, I would slim down the roster a bit, but I'd also not like necessarily do a brand split, but try and I think Rampage is dead, like RIP Rampage, but I would try and make Collision into something more important and worthwhile. Final Boss asks about Raw getting cut to 2 hours. I answered that earlier. Do you think the women's time could get cut? Absolutely. It's always the women. It seems to always be the women in both companies that are the victims of this. If time needs to be cut, it will happen to the women. It happens in WWE, it happens in AEW. So yeah, I think the women's time could get cut. Maria says AEW got a lot of criticism for how they were booking women. How do you think they're booking women now? Better, but not great. I think Mariah May's title run has been awful. It reeks of them having this big plan for her and Toni Storm, but no plan afterwards, especially for the bits where either Mina or Toni wouldn't be there. And I think she spent so long being Toni Storm's understudy that then when she got to be herself, it's like they're pushing her into almost like diva type things. Like the promo she did with Sky Blue at All Out, was it? Was so bad, where they were like, did she call her a hoe or something, or a skank? I don't know. It was just awful. So there's still a lot of really bad booking in the women's division. There's a lot of stuff that I can't believe gets through. I think that I don't know who writes each thing, but I don't think like the idea of that, oh, they hired Jennifer Pepperman, this is going to benefit all women. I don't find that to be true at all. And she's Mercedes' personal writer, and God, Mercedes stuff has on the most part not been good. But there are like bright spots, and Willow and Chris is a bright spot. I wish Jamie Hayter had never been stuck with Saraya, but it's what happened. So better, but still not great. Okay. I've got about 8 minutes left. So if you have any final questions, get them in. I'm not going to answer everything I have left, but I'm going to pick the ones that I think I can answer best. So like Fernando says here, what grade do you give the AEW women's division right now? C+. So that's a pass, but it's not what it could be. Mika, thoughts on Drake after his loss to Kendrick Lamar? Will he be able to bounce back in the music industry? No. R.I.P. Drake. I really like Kendrick Lamar. Not a fan of Drake, despite the fact that I'm living in Toronto. Okay. What are your thoughts on Miro and his future in AEW? Asks Maria. I think Tony should let him go. I think he is not motivated. I think he doesn't want to be there. Why keep him there? Why keep paying him? Yeah, I would let him go. I would have told him to leave ages ago. And there's some other people that are the same. I think there's one person who there's been, I think, rumblings about quite recently that their contract is coming up, and it's someone who doesn't seem to want to do anything to benefit AEW or anything Tony Khan asks him to do. So Miro, I think there's a problem on both sides. Like, it's wild that you couldn't think of anything creative to satisfy Miro, but the guy just doesn't want to be there. So let him go. I think that he would have a big return in WWE, but I don't see him getting to the top of the card or anything like that in WWE either. But I think he'd be happier. Where is Wardlow? Wardlow is healing an ankle injury, is it? Something like that. Who was it that said it? Matt Taven, maybe? But Wardlow, that's a guy that's been, I think he's been badly used, but I also think that we thought he had a higher ceiling than he actually does. He was really great during the stuff with MJF. MJF really, really great. And there were so many times, like I think of the so Duke here asks us about Wardlow too. So I'm just on Wardlow now, Duke. I've only got to tune in. What would you do with Wardlow when he's able to return? So I think there were so many great times where Wardlow had these little things, these little moments. Like there was definitely one when they were doing the feud of the Pinnacle in the inner circle, where you're like, oh my God, Wardlow spoke and he's gonna be amazing. And the whole way that him and his feud with MJF played out was so great until you got to MJF, nearly walking out at Double or Nothing, and then just Wardlow destroying him, but then no real follow up with Wardlow. So I really don't know what you do with Wardlow, because I don't think he is as great as we thought he could be, and I think that's a bit on him. It's a bit on AEW, but I don't see Wardlow being able to be massively rehabbed. I think the ship has sailed. And I think I would be looking more at pulling a Takeshita up to the top of the card rather than trying to slot Wardlow in high when he comes back. I think he's another guy who could very well leave when his contract is up. And I don't know how well he'd fare in WWE either, but it's worth a shot because I think sometimes the booking can be so damaging, you know. Oh, a super chat. Thank you. From Lord Peter, who says Wardlow needs to study Mike Austin's greatest hits and incorporate what he can. Yeah, Mike Austin, someone like that would be a great person for Wardlow to study. I don't think AEW ever decided, it's like what I was saying about Mariah May. They had this idea of Mariah being Tony Storm's understudy, and it would be this whole long story with this big reveal at the end. So, but once it came for Mariah to stop playing that character, then there was no thought into who she was going to be. And with Wardlow, once he stopped playing the character of MJF's silent bodyguard, they had no idea who this man wanted to be. And his real name's Michael, right? I remember that period where he was trying to, where he was portraying himself more as like a regular guy, and he was talking about his relationship with his father's unfortunate death, and him cutting his hair, and he was like saying, I am Michael rather than Wardlow. That's not something I would have done with a guy like that at all. And it just reeked of them not having actual plans for who Wardlow is when he's not MJF's bodyguard. And then doing this, well, you might as well just go out there and be yourself, Michael, and this was when he was like running around in sweatpants and stuff too, looking like he just nipped out to get some fags at 8 a.m., he was looking like scruffy, and it was just like this guy who looked so monstrous and cool and all these things, like they just let drop. So it's kind of like what I was saying with Mariah, where once she stops playing Tony Storm, they were just like, well, we don't know who you are now. So, I mean, you're blonde. So I guess go out there and be kind of diva era-ish, rather than actually having the foresight to like plan for these people once their big initial storyline happens. Like, how many people have come into not just AEW but WWE too with this amazing like initial storyline, and then once it runs out, it's like everyone in creative seems to act like they never thought this day would come, or thought that they had to plan far ahead. Okay, I'm wrapping up now. I've gone an hour. What will Vince's legacy be? It will be like Harvey Weinstein. No, it should be like Harvey Weinstein. It's like a legacy of disgrace. But people in wrestling, wrestlers, people who talk about wrestling, people that watch wrestling, unfortunately, are way more willing to those a lot of those people are more willing to want to make the point of, hey, this person did great things. And I feel like when you look at Harvey Weinstein, right? And so many of your favorite movies from the 90s were produced by Harvey Weinstein. Harvey Weinstein had a hand in them. Harvey Weinstein was undeniably integral to modern day Hollywood. And when Weinstein was exposed and his downfall happened, it's like everyone just wanted to back away. So you have very few actors, if they're asked about Weinstein, ones that worked with him, because all your favorite actors worked with him as well. And there's a lot of mainstream actors that were extremely close to him, and who may or may not have known what he was doing. If they're asked about Weinstein, they're just like, oh, he's this scumbag, disgraced, all this, like how awful, all this stuff. But they don't seem to like feel the need to start by saying like, well, Harvey was nice to me and he financed my film and he did my Oscar campaign and that's how I won Best Actress. And obviously the stuff that he did was absolutely terrible and I'm glad he's in jail. But to me, I'm always going to be thankful for how much he helped me. Like, you don't get that happening. But wrestling seems like people in wrestling they just can't break away from Vince in a way where they just feel the need to always talk about the good stuff with him. So yeah, I think his legacy should be that he is like a Weinstein type where like no good word is ever said about him, disgraced figure, as someone that ruined their own life, ruined their own legacy. They were poisoned by power and did all these despicable things. But I think what his legacy is actually going to be is a lot of wrestlers saying really good things, and fans too, about what he did for them, and then adding on at the end, but like obviously, it turned out he was a bad person or whatever. So I think that's what his legacy will be. His legacy will be a man who makes old wrestlers give really stupid quotes. Final boss. A lot of fans still make excuses for Benoit. I think, I mean, I don't want to get into like a Benoit discussion like live on stream, live on YouTube, but I think the Benoit and Vince are very different. And when it comes to Benoit, I am less like, Benoit's like is such a complicated topic for both fans and wrestlers that I think that they're very different. Vince and Benoit, it's very different situations. Okay, well, I think I answered basically everything. And that was great. That was an hour of answering your questions. So thank you so much, guys. I'll be back on Thursday, live for my review of AEW Dynamite. It's the 5-year anniversary of AEW Dynamite. And do you guys know that I did not watch the first AEW Dynamite live because I was in Florida watching NXT live at Full Sail. I was in attendance for the return of Finn Balor, and therefore I was not sat in front of my TV when Dynamite went live for the first time. But yeah, thank you all so much, and I will catch you next time. Bye.